Hello everyone and welcome to this video. In this video we're going to be looking at ARP spoofing with ARP spoof. Alright, so you might be thinking to yourself, well I've heard of the ARP protocol. What is ARP spoofing? Well, the first thing you need to understand is the spoofing process. Alright, so simply put, the spoofing process is simply impersonating a device on a network in order to get in the middle of the communication between the router, alright, and the device you are impersonating. Alright, so we will be using ARP spoofing for this. Alright, so this will allow us to tell the host or your target to send its traffic to us. Alright, now the reason it's going to send its traffic to us is because we are going to be impersonating the router. Alright, and then we are going to impersonate our target and tell the router to send the traffic or the packets back to the target, but the router thinks that we are the target and it sends the packets to us, and that way we are able to intercept the communication between the target and the router. And this is also known as a man-in-the-middle attack, alright? Because essentially speaking, you are a man in the middle between the communication between your target and the router or the access point. Okay, so we are going to be using ARP spoof, alright? So ARP spoof is a fantastic tool that allows us to perform this. Now, ARP spoof is pre-installed on Kali Linux, but if it's not, it's part of a larger package called DNSNF, alright? So you can just install that, but by default it should be installed. So update your repositories and your packages. Alright, so now let's get started with the whole process of ARP spoofing or ARP spoof, alright? So let's get started now. The first thing we need to do is we need to understand that we need to enable the flow of packets, alright? Or we need to forward packets, and this can be done really simply by opening up your terminal, right? So just open up your terminal. Now essentially many people usually perform this step at the very end after they've impersonated the router and they've impersonated their target. But I would consider it very, very important to do it before you start performing the ARP spoofing attack. Alright, so what you want to do is you want to use your system control, and we say we want to edit the so we want to edit the net.ipv4. We want to forward the flow of packets, so ipv4.ip, and we want to change this to IP forward, and the value should be equal to 1. Alright, so we're allowing the flow of packets here. So I'm going to hit enter, and this should be the result. Alright, fantastic. Now we need to understand what we are doing. So the essential thing that we are trying to do is we are trying to intercept the packets, alright, of our target and the router. It gives us a much better position because now we can, once we intercept the packets that are being sent from and to the router from our target, we can then get valuable information. Alright, now what you do with that information, up to you. But I'm going to be explaining the process. So in this case, our target is going to be the Windows 7 virtual machine here. Now you can use any operating system on even a mobile device if you want to, right? And we're just going to be performing some simple browsing. So as you can see here, I have this browser. So we're going to be just browsing the latest, just be opening sites, and I'll explain how everything is done. Okay, now the most important thing with the ARP spoof is you need to have multiple terminals open. Alright, so the first step that we need to do is we need to tell the target that I am the router. Alright, so we need to do that. So how do we do this? We do this with the ARP spoof, so ARP spoof. Alright, and now we select the interface, which in this case is going to be Ethernet 0. So that can be done with the command I, and we select the interface. Now you can be doing this on Wi-Fi, so you'd select your wireless interface, which in most cases would be WLAN 0. Alright, now we need to select our target IP address. Alright, so we're going to say T. We use the T command, and now we need to enter our target IP address. So to do that, we can use netdiscover for network discovery, or I am just going to go into the Windows 7 virtual machine, and I'm just going to open up command prompt here, so I can get the IP address really quickly. Alright, so ipconfig, and there we are. The IP address is 192.168.1.102. Excellent. So we'll go back and add that. So we're adding the target address now. Alright, and now we need to add our default gateway, which is the router's IP address. By default, you can check this by going into ifconfig. Alright, so ifconfig, and you can just look for your default gateway here. Alright, so once you've got your default gateway, in most cases it will be 192.168.1.1. Alright, so that is your default gateway. Now we are done with that. We can go back here and enter in our default gateway. So after you've entered in your target, you can enter in your router's IP address, which is the default gateway, 192.168.1.1. That is my router's IP address. And now essentially what you're doing is you're telling the target that you are the router. Alright, so once you've entered that, just hit enter, and it's going to start the ARP spoof process. Alright, now we need to open up another terminal, and now we need to act as the router. Alright, or we need to act as the target, sorry about that. We need to tell the router that I am the target. So we can do this by going into ARP spoof. Alright, and we can then select the interface, which is Ethernet 0, and we select our target, or actually in this case, we select our target, which is the router IP address, which is 192.168.1.1, and then we select our target's IP address, which is 192.168.1.102, and once that is done, all we need to do is we just need to hit enter, and the ARP spoof process is now complete. So if we open both of these terminals, you can see that they are now both impersonating each other, and the flow of packets is, we have enabled the flow of packets. So now what we can do is we can analyze the packets that are being sent to and from the router and our target by using a tool like TCP dump. All right, so we can say TCP dump port 80, TCP dump port 80, so port 80, like so, and we just hit enter. Or for some reason that is not really working, so I'm just going to hit TCP dump, and we can just use the port 80, and there you are. So now it's going to list all the packets that are flowing to and from, and as you can see, we have captured packets. So these are the packets that are going to and from the router and our target, and you can intercept them from here. You can also use other network sniffing tools like Wireshark for more of an advanced analysis of the packets that are going through. And yeah, that is how to perform ARP spoofing with ARPspoof. So I hope you really found value in this. This is a very, very powerful attack that you can use. In the next video, we'll be using EtherCap to perform man-in-the-middle attacks, which is going to be much more advanced, and you'll actually see it'll be much easier to capture packets or to perform the man-in-the-middle process.